السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وخاتم النبيين محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Brothers, sisters, beloved listeners, ready Ramadan, it's me Irfan with a bit of late night pre-sahur chat for you, and joining me in the studio is the one, the only, Mr. Shehzaad. Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Wa alaikum salam, Irfan, and thank you for the kind introduction.
Kind introduction, yeah. I kind of just thought I'd underplay it a little bit, you know what I mean? Now that you're all BBC and that, so I just thought, you know what, let's just give my man some props. How are you, bro?
Alhamdulillah, just tired, innit?
You're looking tired, you're looking a bit dehydrated.
Yeah, man, today's been a difficult day, it's been quite warm.
It was quite warm. I think also by the time you get to the sort of the 19-20 rosa mark, your body is kind of tiring a bit, you know. It's you sort of just get a bit weary, and everything becomes a bit of a struggle.
Yeah, it's the heat. The water is what I struggle with, and when I'm commuting up and down from here to Birmingham to London in the train, it gets
it's hard. I don't like traveling when I'm fasting because it makes things really hard, because I'm a very sort of routine type of person during Ramadan.
And so you should be in Ramadan,
Yeah, so it just becomes very difficult. But khair, Allah reward us, inshallah. Allah accept everything that we do. Listeners, how are you? We thought we'd give you some company before sahur, whatever time you do your sahur. So get in touch with us. The number is, I don't know what the number is. What is the number? I never remember the number. 016-212-9324 is the phone line, and it's 07450925084. Ramadan special on EAVA 102.5 FM. You are listening live from Evington Road. So we are now approaching the final section, final portion of Ramadan, the final third. This is the third of Ramadan, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if He wills, will emancipate and free everyone and give them salvation from the hellfire and redemption from all of their sins. So inshallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first of all forgive us and accept all of our efforts. And yes, so it is half term next week, so all the kids must be really, really excited. I know my two are, so alhamdulillah, at least they can get to fast properly without having to worry about school and waking up early, this, that and the other. So, Brother Shehzaad, what should we talk about, my friend? You were saying something before we went on air about masajid.
Yes, I mean, this Ramadan particularly, even for a BBC report, I've been speaking to a lot of young people.
Yeah.
And I think times have changed, Irfan. People, in terms of looking into religion and studying theology, are really taking it seriously. And they're understanding the balance and the difference between what is a cultural practice and what is an Islamic practice.
I think you're right, because I think, first of all, it's become a lot more accessible. Religion has become, I was just today, as I came out of Tarawih this evening, and alhamdulillah, mashallah, I was really, really sort of pleased and really happy to see so many different communities in one mosque. So before, alhamdulillah, it was like you were either sort of South Asian, Pakistani, Indian, but now we're seeing Bangladeshi brothers from Africa, East Africa, North Africans, Egyptians, Moroccans, Algerians, Tunisians. We're also seeing a lot of our Arab brothers coming there, like I said, from the Middle East, and alhamdulillah, a lot of I don't want to say this, because I was reading an article about revert Muslims, and they don't like being called revert Muslims.
Just but new Muslims,
even though I think to label them is kind of just being a bit unfair. But for the sake of argument, revert Muslim, and alhamdulillah, just so nice to see people from so many walks of life under one roof, doing the same thing at the same time for the same purpose, for the same reason. Really, really sort of uplifting. I thought. But going back to your point.
I mean, absolutely. You've obviously spoken about some of the phenomenal things, specifically in Leicester, actually, where there's a diverse range of Muslims with different rich cultural practices and traditions, which is great. People are coming together, they're celebrating iftar together. You just see on Evington Road, there's a wide range of people, and it's phenomenal to see. But specifically, Irfan, when I speak to young Muslims, I'm talking about from their teens upwards, so up to the 30 mark. They all say that they feel slightly disenfranchised with Islamic establishment in this country, or specifically in Leicester. What I mean by Islamic establishment is they don't feel that they're given importance to be decision makers, to be policy makers, to have a say in how Islamic and cultural practices are run in this country or in this city. They don't feel as though their opinions matter. And they also feel as though whenever they ask questions of those people who are in authority, they're sort of shunned away. They're told, leave.
That's
go.
interesting because, okay, so, right, that's you make a couple of very interesting points there. I think, people, mashallah, they've got a lot of passion for Islam. There is a lot of desire to learn and improve knowledge. And I think with the the richness of ulama we have here in Leicester specifically, I think it's, I don't think, for me, I don't think things have been as good as what they've, it's never been better, in terms of accessibility, asking questions. And I think some people will disagree, saying, well, no, actually in our mosque it's different because we have this great imam, or we have this great scholar who is very open and I think we're transitioning. We're still there's still some elements of what you call the old school mentality or the old fashioned mentality, but we are seeing the emergence of these sort of young homegrown ulama who understand some of these young sort of issues. But I think, well, there's a couple of points. I mean, first of all, you talk about decision making. I think there are certain areas where we should leave Islamic rulings to those who are qualified.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But they're not in a position to not be questioned. When I mean be questioned, I don't mean their credibility or their validity as a scholar. Of course,
but just to ask a question.
But the ability to go up to somebody and understand the logic behind the decision they've made. Yeah. We respect the Prophet ﷺ has said, Al-ulama warathatul anbiya. We know that the inheritors of the anbiya, we respect them for the knowledge they have of Allah and His Rasul ﷺ. But no young person should feel I cannot approach a scholar to clarify a matter that I'm not too sure about, and that does happen in Leicester. Irfan, I know you're saying there's a transition.
No, I'm not disagreeing with you. What I'm saying is, I mean, I suppose I agree with you because I went through that feeling myself. Sometimes,
when you were younger.
Yeah, when I was younger, sometimes you feel embarrassed because you feel like you might be judged because you might not know something. So therefore, it's that whole I'm asking you silly questions, so therefore I won't ask it at all. But then I found pleasantly when I did start asking questions, I thought, well, actually, you know what? Part of that problem was me.
Yeah.
It wasn't the people I was asking, and part of it was I started to ask the right people, people who I could relate to.
You identified who you could ask.
Because this is going back a long time, but when I was a student in madrasa, I struggled because I was not from a certain cultural background. I didn't speak a certain Indian language, and therefore I was labelled as a certain type of Muslim because I didn't come from that, or I was kind of I definitely felt discriminated. That's probably the best way to describe it.
So if you felt discriminated as somebody whose parents originate from...
And I was, I was young. I was like, early to mid-teens.
Exactly. So if you felt like that, how does a young white revert brother feel when he goes to certain masjids and they refuse to speak in the same language as him, or they have a certain cultural practice which they've brought from back home, and that white person or that brother from a British sort of background, British heritage background, doesn't feel as though it connects with them and they can't even ask a question?
Well,
and it happens, Irfan.
Yeah, I'm not denying that it doesn't happen. I think then there needs to be a bit of education and dialogue on both parts.
So how long have we been saying that?
We have, but like I said, you can't what's that saying? You can't boil an ocean. You know what I mean? It takes time. It takes time. So you've got to really kind of chip away, and we've seen it happen. It is happening. So I don't doubt that it won't happen. And I think it feels like we're at a saturation point. Not in the sense that we've got to, but mashallah, I think Leicester, we who live in Leicester, we sort of take for granted what we have access to.
Absolutely.
And all the facilities and services that we have. If you were to go outside of Leicester, I'm talking not even very far, even places like, say, Nottingham, Derby, Birmingham, they're not going to have what we have here in terms of access, in terms of that environment. So mahol, they say mahol is very important.
Of course.
And I know a lot of effort has been created to be, but and I still think there still is room for widening,
Of course.
widening understanding.
I mean, we're not taking anything away from what our parents' generation and the generations before. Just even things like the burial facilities in this city.
Superb.
I have to say best in the UK.
Untouchable.
Just the way Embicol works, just the way the funeral facilities work.
Just the way, even how good our council is. Let's not forget Leicester City Council.
Exactly, and Eid Salah in terms of being able to perform in a park, having fun days for people, for women to feel safe to come out at night and go to the masjid. That's a huge thing, and it's something we take for granted in other cities. But Irfan, I wanted to speak to you about one particular thing. I spoke to two young brothers who have moved from Northampton recently. Again, a predominantly sort of white area in terms of its demographic, and what they said to me, and I really want to get your perspective on this, and a very non-diplomatic perspective, if possible, is they said to me that since we've been in Leicester for the last year and a half, we feel as though there's a need for us to be identified with a particular cultish mentality. You're a part of this certain group of almost like a football team where you follow this particular mosque or this method or this style, and they feel as though as Muslims that's very difficult for them to identify with. They come from Northampton where there's some Bengali brothers who own a restaurant, and they've just set up one little place for them to pray, and they're all very united and together, and they value the unity and coming together of Muslims. And then they come to Leicester, whereas of course we are united, and we do have a brother will help another brother, and there's a great environment in Mahol, as you said. But Irfan, they feel as though in Leicester it is absolutely necessary for them to identify with a particular group or a particular.
So you have to kind of be like compartmentalized.
Yeah. And isn't that massively problematic?
Okay, so what I see in Leicester sometimes is there's a bit of jostling for position, okay.
Do you mean authority?
No. I think you're right, sometimes, but then again, I think that's the fault of the individuals who ask those questions. Like, for example, you just said, if I was to see a brother, the first thing I wouldn't ask him is, what Aqidah do you follow? Which brand of Islam are you?
Exactly.
Yeah, no. So for me, it's like, okay. I mean, one of the scholars in Leicester who's a very good friend of mine, and he just always told me, he said, Irfan, if things are getting too complex or too, obscure, just do the basics. Yeah, just do your fara'id. Yeah, Islam, there's only 5 things that are fara'id.
Absolutely.
Right, only 5 things. Just do those and then worry about the rest later on. Everything else is secondary in terms of how you adapt yourself or how you want to associate. So I mean, you're right, because I went through a point as well where I aligned myself with a certain, not aligned myself, but I kind of said, well, you know what, I probably naturally more belong to this group than that group. Your
disposition allowed you to go towards that side, or what?
Yeah.
Or a particular side.
Yeah. And I think what it is, you've got to then think to yourself, you've got to think, right, you know what, I can sort of brand other people as this, that, and I can say, well, I don't agree with you, I don't agree with this, and that. But at the end of the day, worry about yourself. Yeah, end of the day, am I praying my 5 times salah? Am I doing my fasting? Am I doing my zakat? Am I doing, everything else that I need to be doing? Am I behaving well with my family? Am I being an example through it? That's the main thing. For me, I don't think all the Muslims, alhamdulillah, will be doing their fara'id, but what is going to set you apart from that is your moral behavior and conduct.
Absolutely.
It's how are you
conducting yourself.
Yeah, so for example, how are you when you're in the street? Are you swearing, shouting at everyone? Because if you are, then mate, you need to check yourself.
You need to go back to the classroom. I mean, absolutely, in terms of character, for me, Irfan, do you know what I think the biggest issue is? The biggest issue is not identifying and not accepting that there is a valid difference of opinion in this faith.
Yeah.
I think that is a disease, not in Leicester or not around the world, but particularly because we're focusing here. The ability to tell yourself, listen, I have a particular view which probably goes back to a particular scholar, which goes back to a particular tradition of the Prophet ﷺ, but there's another brother who's my neighbor who has another view which goes back to another
totally
scholar.
Agree, but what I will say is I have seen myself sometimes, yes, you're right, but where the problem lies is that there are some members of the wider community who unfortunately are still ignorant, and then you've got some scholars who play on that ignorance. So therefore, in a bayan, rather than sort of talk about the seerah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or talk about good conduct and stuff, what they will do is they will kind of very indirectly stir up a bit of tension.
Absolutely, because you know what happens. Division, unfortunately, division allows you to assemble your own group of people, your army, and it builds a wall with anybody else who's not a part of that. And that cultish mentality is quite financially beneficial for people. I'm not talking about I'm talking about across the board. When you start making little groups, it's us vs them, and that is massively problematic.
But I think historically in Leicester, we've suffered from that. So 30 years ago, when I was growing up, it felt more prevalent than it does now.
It was a volatile atmosphere.
I think than it does now, and I think like I said, with all the channels that we have now, and with the accessibility we have, it allows people to then, I suppose, create more divisions or form more opinions, or kind of then just branch off into a little sub sects or sub cultish behaviors. Do you know what I mean? So you get sort of like a group within a group, and that group then becomes quite vocal or whatever. But alhamdulillah, it's all good. So let's just remind the listeners what they listen to. It is EAVA FM 102.5 Ramadan special. The number to give us a call is 07450 95084. I'm here with Mr. Shehzaad Lohar, Leicester's finest broadcaster.
That is phenomenally kind, but you shouldn't lie in Ramadan.
Astaghfirullah.
In fact, I just wanted to say one thing.
Go on.
I'd like to say a couple of things to you, but some of them are not very family friendly.
Allahu Akbar. How can you, man? How can you on this auspicious night?
On this auspicious night. It's a point again with regards to when people have a difference of opinion. I was once told this phenomenal thing, and it goes back to a really sort of important point that you made. There's a lot of people who will only get a chance to visit the masjid once a week on Jummah. And they might go to the masjid at about 15 to 20 minutes before the khutbah. Okay, and they're hearing a speech in English, Urdu, Bengali, Gujarati, whatever the language is. And in that 15 minutes, it's the job of the scholar to captivate that young person who only comes to the mosque once a week, and sort of ignite this fire in them that makes them closer to Allah and His Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam. Yes? Now when you use that 15 minutes to slate somebody else, or to speak ill of somebody else, or to create a cultish mentality, you have lost that young person for months. I am speaking from personal experience. I have friends who say, bro, we don't go to that bayan anymore because I'm not learning anything about the Prophet ﷺ. I'm not learning anything about the Khulafa Rashidin, the Sahaba Ikram, the Ahlul Bayt. All I'm learning is that, that mosque's not right, that group's not right, that person's not right. So I think what I'm trying to say is the key thing is for us to use the time that we're given wisely, which is a very small window, which is accessible to young people, to reach out to them in the correct way. And the only way to reach out to them is through the conduct and character of the Prophet ﷺ.
True. The problem is you've got a lot of, still to this day, a lot of ignorance around certain things.
Why is there
ignorance and stubbornness within the community?
But why?
So because what it is that sometimes if you take on board somebody's opinion, those people think, you know what, I'm admitting that I was wrong. And the human condition, that the pride and the ego doesn't allow them to say,
the fitra is absolutely.
So that's something that I think we all need to work on. But
But what are you doing differently? And I can ask you this because I know you personally. What are you doing differently to speak to Omar and Amaro? Sorry, that's your children's name. I feel like I was saying in your house there. What are you doing to speak to them? And I don't just mean this to you, I mean this to young parents, in order to change their mentality about educating them about differences of opinion, about how you can't speak ill of people just because they don't agree with everything that you say, or the mosque that you go to, or the organization you belong to. How, as a parent, are you trying to nurture and better that future generation? That's what I wanted to ask.
So again, give them access to education, right? Communicate with them, but also empower them. So empowering them to understand what it is we do, why we do it, and then encourage them to question. So if they have got questions, it's because they want to know something. So Umar will always ask me something about X, Y, and Z, right? And if I don't know the answer, I will try and find it for him.
From a scholar.
Yeah, from a scholar. But then at the same time, empower them for them to then make their own mind. So, I'm not going to be there all the time. When I'm gone, they need to be equipped with the ability to make rational judgments based on good logic, based on sound arguments and sound sources. So that's what I try to do, but also making sure that if I do catch them saying this, that, and the other, I'll say, hang on a minute, look at yourself first. Yeah, look at yourself first before you start thinking about others, and don't start judging them. And I think kids today, that's my alarm for series going off. I need to go in a bit. But I think kids today are quite, quite what they call woke. That term. They're quite switched on, and we have to give our youngsters a lot of credit because they see so much things and they naturally just absorb all the information that's flying around. We have to give them a bit more credit, but also don't talk down to them.
Yeah, don't patronize them.
Yeah, don't talk down to them. Don't just say, you know what, leave it. Just,
you don't need to know. You're still a little kid. Get out of here.
Because they're asking for a reason and they want to know something, and that means they've got a desire, a passion, or a love for something, and they want to, so you can't sort of dampen that spark.
Do you think young children, there's a danger of them being exposed to too much when it comes to Islam?
Absolutely. So Islam,
specifically to do with
Islam, it depends, because I think again, scholars tell me that Islam is a religion of moderation. So don't do too little, don't do too much, do just enough, just the right amount. So I think there is a lot that everyone needs to learn, and Islam, you're a student for life. From the moment you're born to the moment you die, you're always learning. So you've got to kind of just tell them that, look, whatever you know will never be enough. Yeah, but before you get to this stage, you've got to make sure you logically progress through the natural sort of levels of your learning. If you bombard them with too much, they'll either switch off or just rebel or whatever it is. But if you don't give them enough, they won't really take it on board or understand what it is they need to do. So it's a fine line, and I think parenting here in this country is becoming more and more difficult, and we've seen the reasons why in the news this past week. But at the same time, you can't just shut yourself off saying, what, although we don't agree with this, these issues do not exist. We have to say, right, what, these issues exist, but this is what our teachings tell us, yeah, and we have to do the best to follow those teachings. After that,
I think a part of that ignorance that you were speaking about is also the ability to not answer questions. And when young people ask you about different topics, they could be about sex, they could be about drugs, they could be about why certain things happen in the Prophet's life.
Yeah.
Why do we shy away? We believe that this deen is based upon certainty and haqq. Okay, so we should never ever, in my opinion, shy away from certain topics. Yeah, there's some things that the kids are perhaps not ready for, but it's about how you tackle that issue and how you speak to them. Really quickly, the smartphone, Irfan.
Yeah.
I know a lot of young people, or I know a lot of young parents who have struggled with their children because their children have been exposed to so many different views, talks, ideologies, perspectives through watching lectures on their phone. As a parent, and as somebody who is interacting with young people every single day, what do you do there, man? Like, it's difficult, isn't it?
You as a parent, you've got to know what they're watching. So
can you always keep a tab on that?
No, you can't. But at the same time, you've got to put in some sort of limitations and boundaries around accessing things, because, like you say, too much is not enough. Is too much. And again, if they're accessing the wrong things, and if you're not vetting what they're looking at or what they're seeing, then over time they'll become influenced by it, right? So you got to say, what, stay away from this. This is a good source. It's like like in school or whatever. You tell them this is a good book to learn. This is maybe not a good book. So you as a parent, you've got to maintain. But it's getting harder and harder because like you say, you're not with them 24 hours a day. But you've got to gradually. You can't just sort of forbid them from all these technologies because that's not going to work. But at the same time, you can't just give too much freedom around these things. So you have to really and police it. Because that's what your role as a parent is, to police.
Yeah.
Especially as your kids become older and they start sort of coming to maturity and this, that, and the other. So yeah, those are things. But Brother Shehzaad, I'm afraid I need permission to leave now.
Yeah.
Because my Shady time is coming again.
Let's go to
but you are listening to Radio Ramadan FM EAVA 102.5. Stay tuned because Mr. Loha is going to go solo
For a little while.
and we'll see who's doing that so that we can grab somebody to give you some company. But listen, pleasure speaking with you, inshallah.
Always.
Need to do this again.
Yeah, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum wa
Wa alaikum
rahmatullahi wa
assalam wa
barakatuh.
rahmatullah. Thank you. We've literally done a hot desk switchover. Is that what you call it? And my producer is not concentrating on his job. You're listening to Ramadan FM. It's late night talk, apparently, which is Adluha. And what was Irfan Mururajani, who has now left the building because he starts he ends his suhoor period at 1:22, I think it is, following his local masjid. So he's had to rush off so he can quickly get that cereal down him or get a quick drink down him and then begin his fast. I want you to get in touch with us and sort of engage with us. The number to call in is 0116 212 9324. That's the studio number to call in, and of course if you'd like to text in 07450 925084. We're available online, www.ramadan.fm. You can email me if anybody still does that, info@ramadanfm.com, and we're live on Facebook, your Facebook feed. If you like the Ramadan.fm page, which is affiliated and associated with EAVA FM on 102.5 FM, you can follow us on Facebook. I can see some people have joined, and I'd like to say hello to all and salamu alaikum to all the people who are joining this live Facebook feed. Imran Didat has very kindly said, mashallah, it's a really good show, and thank you, and asking how I am. Alhamdulillah, I'm very, very well. I want you to get in touch with me, and we've been talking about young people feeling disenfranchised with the masjid's sort of setup, how establishments are run. They feel as though they're not given importance to make authoritative decisions or be in policy making. They feel as though their opinions are not taken into consideration. Young people have also spoken to me about this idea that they have to align themselves or associate themselves or affiliate themselves with an organization, a particular mosque, a particular theological perspective, and they don't feel comfortable doing that. I earlier spoke to Irfan about two brothers who have recently moved down from Northampton, and what they said to me was, we were in a small masjid in Northampton, which was at the back of an Indian restaurant run by Bengali brothers, and there was only about 50 of us that used to come to the masjid, and we were so united because we didn't have a massive Muslim community. We didn't ever speak about division. We didn't ever speak about difference of opinion. If somebody did something that was different to us, we said, khair, bismillah, you do what you need to do. But we're together as a Muslim community trying to hold it together. But when they moved to Leicester, they struggled. They struggled with what they described as cultish mentalities, what they described as, almost like, what football team do you support? Which little clique or clan are you a part of? And it's something which I think we really need to take into consideration. And my producer's spoken to me about this earlier as well today, why young people are feeling disenfranchised, why young people are feeling a disconnect, why they're not feeling the ability to align themselves with the masjid, why they feel as though they'll go and do work for charities, they'll raise money on the road. They'll go out on road and raise money for some of these really commendable charities and very well-known charities with buckets in their hand. But when it comes to cleaning the toilets of the masjid, or when it comes to organizing events at the masjid for young people, put on by young people, they're not interested. Why are they not interested? They feel as though committees have shut them away, have shut them down, have not allowed them to have any importance, have not engaged with them. We spoke about on the flip side how earlier generations have done some phenomenal work in Leicester to establish this deen, to establish masajid, the 75 masjids in Leicester, for God's sake, which is phenomenal. There's so much choice, there's so much variety, there's so many different types of people that you can go and see. The burial facilities that are in Leicester are phenomenal, probably one of the best in the UK, definitely the best in the Midlands. We've got a janazah in the Qabristan. We've got a place where people can read their Salatul Janaza at the Qabristan. The funeral facilities as a whole, generally, in terms of the entire process of when somebody passes away until when they're buried, phenomenal. Okay, we've got food banks. We've got so many great things for the community to benefit from. But why do young people still feel as they don't have a community hub? There's nowhere they can go and shoot a bit of pool, play a bit of table tennis, grab a few cold drinks and a milkshake and relax in an Islamic environment, which then results them to going to other places. There's not a place where they can have a debate about what they think about the political structure. Okay, in other countries there's a Turkish model where young Turkish Muslim brothers and sisters go to universities at the time of Ramadan and they discuss their political views. They discuss what they think about policy making. They discuss what they think about the general elections. They discuss what they think about how the country needs to move forward economically, socially, politically. Why are there not centres or community hubs for Muslims, particularly focusing in Leicester? I'm not putting a dampener on it. Of course, the city of Leicester does some phenomenal things, and we know that. But what else can we be doing to move away from this idea that young people don't know what they're doing? You come back to me in 5 years, all right? As they say in Urdu, tu abhi bacha hai. Go back, get out of here. Yeah. Why is it that young people feel disenfranchised, disassociated, and disengaged with the Islamic establishment set up in this city? Got loads of people sort of joining the feed. I've got Sarmad Mansoor saying, MashaAllah, very good show, Jazakallah, brother. We are now heading towards a break. Is that right, Mr. Producer? No, there's no break now. The producer has put on some incorrect instructions, but that's what I expect of this producer. He's not of the quality and caliber that I expect. The man sitting next to him, though, is Zed Sheikh, who's a phenomenal man. Really good looking, and brilliant at what he does as well. A bit of an inspiration for me, Zed Sheikh. But yeah, get in touch with me. Late Night Talk with Shehzaad Lohar and what was Irfan Murajani. He's left the building now because he's snuffling down a cereal or a milkshake before his suhoor period ends. Am I allowed to read out the names of the people who have joined? Yeah, because sometimes people are hiding things from their wives and their husbands, and I don't really want to be saying that they're on Facebook. I'm only joking. Imran Didat, Yahya Hafiji, Irfan Chatba, Fayaz Ahmed, Abu Ishaq, Shafina Farouk, and Sarmad Mansoor. All guys that have been joining in frequently and listening to all the rubbish that I've been talking, or hopefully all the fruitful things that I've been saying as well. I want you to get in touch with me. Can I get the number up, please, for anybody who'd like to call or text in? It's 01162129324 if you'd like to call in. And if you're feeling a little bit shy, 07450925084 is the number to text us on. We're on Ramadan.fm online. And if you'd like to email us, if anybody still emails anybody anymore, I don't think they do in the age of Facebook and Instagram, DMing people, info@ramadan.fm. We are now going to invite into the studio Zed Sheikh to sort of grill him a little bit and ask him a few questions before I need to head back and have my suhoor. I think I'm having a masala omelette today, and I might be having a little paratha with it as well, and I bought some waffles as well. Zed, take a seat here.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Zed Sheikh. Me and you have not been on radio together for ages.
No, you're a pro. You know, you're a professional. We just 30 days.
Do you know what? I have to agree with you.
Yeah. That's right, yeah. So it's a little bit difficult to go with you. It's like a Premier League, you know, against...
And you're what for?
No, I'm the Premier League, yeah.
I was thinking more grassroots football.
That's right.
Sunday night, Sunday afternoon or Sunday morning. Anyway, Zed, put your phone on silent and let's talk. We've been talking about young people. We've been talking about their relationship with Islamic establishments and masjids, and the ability for them to make decisions and the ability for them to feel involved and a part of the structure and setup. Do you think, as a community and someone who's been an integral part of the community for many years, Zed, do you think you or the community around you has done enough to involve young people in making them feel important and connected to the masjid?
Well, there's a disparity. It's all about disparity, you know, and people got to understand that in a relay race, your life is like a relay. You're running, climbing the social ladder, and you're carrying a baton in your hand, and you're thinking you have to pass it forward, go up another rung up the ladder, but no, you have to pass it back. So the older guys like me have to pass it back to guys like you, because you are younger than us. So we have to pass on our experience to you. Well, that spells a story. All of you listening out there, that if there's a committee out there in the mosque or anywhere in any organization or even a business, if you don't pass the baton back to the younger people, you're not going to have succession planning. You're not, because the younger people, and there are people even younger than you, a 14, 15-year-old, 12-year-old is more savvy on the social media than somebody who's 55 years old. So he's connected to the world more than somebody who's 55.
So what is it? Is it a
disparity? That's what it is.
And is there a fear of letting go? Is there a fear of older people from an older generation who have done remarkable work?
The problem is conditioning. Everybody's conditioned. The father was like that, the grandfather was like that, the mosque is like that.
So they don't want to move on?
They don't move on. They're all conditioned in a certain manner. Now the world has changed. Every 5 years you got to embrace change. And if you don't adapt to change,
you get left behind.
You get left behind. It's no longer survival of the fittest. It is all about adapting to change, and this is what we've been saying throughout the month. So many girls, women have sent us text messages saying that there should be facilities at mosques that have got the room, have got the infrastructure to allow 9 a.m. after the school run for the girls to have a coffee morning, antenatal, prenatal, all the things that they have to go to a non-Muslim organization for. Why should Muslim women have to go to a church, for example, to get all those facilities when they can have them at the mosque? Now, they are not all mosques are built for infrastructure, but certainly you and I know at least 5 mosques
easily
that can provide that.
I think some mosques have taken it on. I sometimes come across as a guy who constantly putting a dampener and down on things, and I'm not being like that, I'm not being cynical. But I think some masjids have embraced change.
Of course
I
they
think
have.
some masjids have.
And inshallah, they shall do so more. But inshallah, you will see change is coming. There will be more and more mosques that have got younger people there sitting on the committees that will do governance. Right? Good governance is when you have a balance of young and old.
And we've got a message here. The problem is purely on the basis that the committee members are stubborn and decide what they feel and don't want to hear anyone else's opinion. It's their ego, bro. From somebody called Fahad Ahmed. Assalamu alaikum, Fahad. Thank you for getting in touch. Shafina Farouk says, MashaAllah, Shehzaad, so proud of you, beta. Really good show. Thank you very much, Shafina auntie. Allah bless you. Brother Fahad is saying the committees have this ego trip that me and you have never had, Zed.
Of course we haven't, because we want the best for everybody, right? So in life, you have to give your experience to those behind you and move on to more exciting, newer things.
How do you empower, if there's a committee in a masjid, how does it empower young people? How does it make them understand that, this baton that you keep talking about, how do they empower them to grab that button, make them feel inspired to want to do something for Allah and His Rasul, to do something for the masjid, alayhi salatu salam?
Well, first of all, let me ask you a question.
Ji.
A masjid,
Ji.
how many hours is there in a day?
24.
And how many hours is a masjid open?
Sporadically, 5 hours, 4 hours.
4 hours, so how many hours left in a day?
Yeah, about 20 hours.
20 hours. If you had a business, for example, and you kept it shut for 20 hours a day, would you be in business?
No, not at all.
Now, do you think Allah will be pleased with us to have a house of Allah and it's closed?
Even if you read the seerah of the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu salam, the masjid was a community hub. People came to ask Mathail to Sayyida Aisha. People came to spend time with their children. There was food, drink. There was places for people to interact and communicate. Men and women were encouraged to come to the masjid. Children had their own sort of hub and center. The masjid wasn't just a place of worship. Of course, predominantly that is where we go to read our salah. But if you're not being inviting to people in the masjid, then where do you expect them to go?
Well, this is a question, but inshallah there is change happening. We here at Ramadan.fm, we have empowered young children who were 12 who are today 16 years old, and we've seen them be top in Leicester in education, and we've empowered them when they were 12.
Yeah.
So you have to lead by example. You have to inspire these youngsters.
What are the obstacles?
Right? Well, we have to start with the younger people at a very early age.
We have to start with the people at a very young age. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a really fruitful discussion. We would inshallah like to join you again next week Saturday as well, which is towards obviously the last portion and the last couple of days of Ramadan, where we'll be doing a bit more late night talk. Irfan will join me, maybe Zed will join me as well, inshallah. I'd like you to listen to the output across the day. Tomorrow, I believe there's a pledge day happening across the day. Is it Rahma Mercy? Rahma Mercy tomorrow. So I'd expect all of you to sort of get involved and give something in the way of Allah and His Rasul alayhi salatu salam. And then on Monday there's another pledge day happening for the City Retreat Centre, who are doing some phenomenal work to empower young people and empower Muslims in the city and the vicinity, as well as reaching out to non-Muslims and giving them something to talk about and ponder upon as well. Thank you so much for getting in touch. We have a last message that I want to read out from Dr. Fasi Khan, who says, I agree, masajid need to be opened around the clock. However, we need to appreciate that logistics are often a barrier. Fair point. Staffing, costing, usage. He's talking about electrical bills, having a caretaker there, all things to take into consideration. And that's why this is a fruitful discussion. This is why we come together and embrace a difference of opinion and ask you to get in touch. This is a platform for you to put your views forward. Jazakumullah khair today for joining us, and inshallah please enjoy the output across the day tomorrow and on Monday as well.